cases that must be put to light, that must be discussed, and that must be dealt with at the highest global political level. And it is our duty as a community of world parliamentarians, world leaders, to encourage ways and means for perpetrators of injustices, of grave war crimes, and crimes against humanity to be brought to justice. I therefore also call on you, colleagues, to show solidarity with the women, our sisters, who are suffering at the hands of tyrants, and to support these very important emergency resolutions on the rights of women and girls globally. With this, I wish us all a fruitful day, a great discussion, and a very, very important work that we are about to set off on. I also welcome any comments from the floor. I see a delegate from Rwanda.
Madam President of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, Mr. President of the IPU, Mr. Representative of the Council of Representatives, Mr. Secretary General of the IPU, dear colleagues, I would like, first of all, to thank our gracious Bahraini hosts for their warm welcome and hospitality since our arrival. I requested the floor in my capacity of a member of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians to nominate Ms. Hala Ramzi Fayez, member of the Shura Council of the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the first Vice President of the IPU Bureau of Women Parliamentarians to preside over this 35th session of the Forum of Women Parliamentarians. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Representative from Uruguay.
Gracias, señora presidenta. De Bahrein, con su capacidad, pueda ser la presidenta de nuestra adelante con nuestro voto.
Support this nomination of Ms. Hala Fayez for the presidency of this session.
For these nominations, honorable members from Rwanda and from Uruguay. And with this, I proceed to offer to our forum to support the nomination of Ms. Hala Fayez, who is a member of the Shura Council of Bahrain and also the first vice president of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, to preside over this forum. If there are no oppositions to this, and I see none, I suggest that the forum adopt these suggestions and this nomination by acclamation. Ms. Fayez, I invite you to take over the forum, and it is a pleasure to welcome you. And again, thank you to Bahrain for welcoming all of us. We have enjoyed here nothing but warmth and hospitality. And thank you for providing the opportunity.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm really honored to be presiding over this forum today, the 35th session of the Forum. I'm happy to see you all here. I welcome you all to Bahrain. I wish you a very pleasant stay, and hopefully we'll have a very fruitful discussion today with your contributions, valuable contributions. Let me start first by welcoming you, but excuse me, it will be in Arabic. First of all,
Vice President of the Shura Council, Your Excellency, the President of the IPU, Your Excellency, the Secretary General of the IPU, Excellencies, brothers and sisters, the august audience. Hello and good morning to everybody. At the outset of the opening of the 35th session of the Forum for Women MPs, it is a pleasure to speak in front of you as we open the works of the Forum for Women. I would also like to seize this opportunity to welcome you in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And the Kingdom of Bahrain is a very good example of peaceful coexistence between different religions and sects. And the Bahrain Kingdom is keen on promoting mutual respect, because it is the main component for the stability of communities and societies and their progress. Everybody is requested to generalize these principles in common work and promoting mediation and coexistence. So we welcome you in this oasis of security, stability, and respect for human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, including women in all policies to face global crisis and challenges is very important. We ask all parliaments to make sure that they foster the right environment for this and to push all parties to promote within the international community, especially given these crises and challenges that influence unproportionately gender, especially those that have to do with violent conflicts and global warming. We have to deal with them in an inclusive way and through dealing with gender that will guarantee equitable solutions for everybody. Women are the weakest link in crises, wars, and conflicts. In fact, they take over a big portion of violence and conflicts. Women have to deal with the biggest brunt, and they have to deal with direct and indirect violence, such as sexual violence, the lack of fundamental services, such as care or healthcare. From this podium, I confirm that we have to promote the involvement of women in all fields, especially economical fields, by including them in the workforce, and we have to promote their work, especially in marginalized and poorer areas. Financial empowerment of women is a condition for their political empowerment, to give them the tools to face many challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, the biological diversity and the promotion of economic activities needs a better understanding of the roles performed by men and women based on their different capacities and capabilities. Despite the progress in the journey of equality between women and men, we need to do more to reduce this gap and empower women for their representation on all levels. I call upon you to take these roles through this podium by exchanging practices and experiences between women parliamentarians and male parliamentarians. We need to make sure that women are included in all strategies and plans that are designed to face insecurity and instability through a gender perspective. And we need to empower women to face crises and wars. In Bahrain, we are proud of all the rights gained by women in all fields, especially the political field. And this is all thanks to the great vision for the king of our country. May God protect him. And through the continuous efforts deployed by the government, presided over by the prince, and through the follow-up of Princess Samika bin Khalifa, and she is also the the president of the Higher Council for Women. And she made sure that women are involved in political work and that their role is guaranteed in the progress of the kingdom in all fields and on all levels within the support given through the legislative power in Bahrain to ensure the prosperity of Bahraini women. In conclusion, we would like to express our full support for the goals of the 35th session for the Forum for Women and Peace, and how important these multilateral forums, how the role that they play in rapprochement and in cooperation in the official diplomatic work. This is why we give great importance for this forum and all the suggestions and proposals that it will give in order to face the global challenges of women all over the world. And we hope that we will get great visions that will promote the goals of our countries to create a better future for all our countries and populations. Thank you very much.
And now I invite Mr. Jamal Fakhro, the first Vice President of the Shura Council, to say a few words. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيدات والسادة.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to convey the salutation of the President of the Member of Parliament, the President of the Parliament of Bahrain. And this word that I will convey to you is his word. Mr. Duarte Pacheco, the President of the IPU, Mr. Martin Chongong, the Secretary General of the IPU, Mrs. Hala Fayez, President of the Shura Council, and the President of the 35th session of the Forum for Women MPs, ladies and gentlemen, hello to everybody. I would like to welcome you all to Bahrain, and it is a pleasure for me to speak firstly in front of this forum. And this meeting has to do with one of the most important issues, which is equality between women and men and the leadership role of women in the society. We believe that gender equality is the main pillar of peace, democracy, and sustainable development. And this is an opportunity for us with the IPU to make sure that we have a common approach. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom of Bahrain plays a very important role in the common efforts through gender equality, through legislative decisions, because we believe in the role of women to achieve progress, and this has been based on the approach that has been designed by the great King of Bahrain. And this is why we have very good strategies and policies and frameworks that have contributed up until now to move women to the progress phase. Bahrain has made great strides in international indices for the promotion of women's role through the great efforts made by the Princess of Bahrain. May God protect her. And the latest indices and goals of Bahrain to remove all the or through the CEDAW Convention made great efforts to deploy initiatives and in order to make sure that all opportunities and stability between women and men are achieved, and to include the needs of women when we achieve the national budget, and to reduce the gap between the women and men. Ladies and gentlemen, in Bahrain, we are proud of the active participation of the Bahraini women in the development journey, their contributions, their active participation, and their assumption of very important responsibilities and leadership roles. Bahraini women have a very good presence in our political life. Today, 20% of the members of the parliaments are women, and it is 25% in the Shura Council. This solidifies the participation of Bahraini women in the political life and in the social progress. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude for Mrs. Hala Fayez, member of the Shura Council, for her representation of the Bahraini Kingdom in the Forum for Women MPs, and how this reflects the role of Bahraini women in a multilateral international work, and how important their role can be. In conclusion, I wish full success for the 35th Forum for Women MPs. I would like to thank you again, and I welcome you once more in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Thank you very much.
إذا سمحتوا لي السادة والسادة بصفتي
if you allow me, ladies and gentlemen, as the Vice President of the Shura Council, I would like to invite you all yesterday night to attend a dinner that will be held for your honor. And we have prepared a very good present for you. And on Monday also, at 1 p.m., we have a special forum that is prepared by the highest or higher women forum that will give you an idea about the women legislations in Bahrain, and we invite you to attend it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fakhro, for your very formative words. I now invite
شكرا مستر
Chico, the president of the IPU, to tell us a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President of the 35th session of the Forum of Women Parliamentarians, Mr. First Deputy President of the Shura Council, Secretary General, Madam President of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, a special word for you, Madam, because I see in your face the strength of Ukrainian women that are fighting for the independence, a real independence of your country. Mr. Secretary General, dear colleagues, Madam Speakers, Mr. Speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be opening the Forum of Women Parliamentarians on the occasion of 146th IPU Assembly. As always, it is a pleasure to join this forum and to be with all of you here. Allow me to say, because I identify two main reasons. First, you may see in the logo of IPU, democracy for everyone. And it is impossible to get this target, democracy for everyone, if we forget half of the population of the world. It's impossible to get this target, democracy for everyone, if we don't have the participation, a complete and inclusive participation of women in politics. It's impossible to get this target of IPU that has more than 100 years old if we don't have a full representation of women in our parliaments. So this is the most important reason to be here with you during this forum. To be with you means to defend the inclusive democracy and a perfect democracy with everyone represented in our parliaments. It's my pleasure to be with all of you. But not just, and I will identify this second reason, not just because it is fair, because it should be our duty, because to have a full representation, both genders needed to be represented in our parliaments. I am here also because I identify that your participation, your ideas, or collaboration is very important to all humankind, to men and women, because I am a man, and you, the majority in this room, women, we have different approach for many issues, and we complement ourselves. We don't have just the position of some part of the society. We will have the participation of all. And with different approach, we will identify the best solutions to the humankind and to solve the problems of our world. That's why also it is important, not just to have a full representation, but because this full representation means that the ideas and the approach to the problems will be more complete. And this way is very relevant, the participation of women in politics. And so we will, IPU, always be engaged to empower the participation of women in politics. And dear friends, just to prove that, a few days ago, I had the pleasure to be in New York at the annual parliamentarian meeting that IPU hosts, joined with UN Women on the occasion of the Commission on the Status of Women. Some people told me, you are crazy. You are completely crazy. Because I was with the Secretary General during the weekend in Doha. So 1 hour fly from here to Bahrain. But on Monday, I fly to New York. I arrived there at 5 p.m. to attend the meeting of UN Women and about the status of women, and came back after lunch to Bahrain. I spent less than 24 hours in New York, but I understood that it's my duty to be there. As president of IPU, it's my duty to be there, to defend the status of women, to identify that you are in the first priorities of our organization, that we together need to work together day by day to defend a better world. And the status of women is something that should be on front line of agenda of IPU. It was a physically hard, don't care. Because it was my duty, I went there. And there, with some of you that attended as well, we discussed the role of parliaments to harness the potential of technology, to drive progress on gender equality. We also discussed how this great potential of technology and digital media for democracy can be hijacked and become a tool of repression used against women and girls. The debates were enlightening, and any tech-related developments have to become gender-sensitive and gender-responsive, instead of being gender-blind. Or else, we will create gender gaps instead of bridging the too many already existing ones. Colleagues, digital media companies have not invented gender inequality, but they have allowed some actors to use digital platforms as a tool to attack the rights of their users and to undermine democracy. And some people may think, we are talking about the private activity. Digital platforms are a private business. Why the state should regulate it? Because the state has the right to regulate everything to protect the citizens. We can think about it. To have safety in our roads, the state put regulation how our cars should be with safety conditions. It's a private business. Yes, it is. But the state decides what are the essential measures for safety of the citizens and the drivers that the car should have. The same needs to be applied to this kind of digital platforms. Is a private business? Yes, it is. But to defend the citizens, we need to apply some regulations as well. Otherwise, the abuses will happen and people will be injured. And the shift to digital during COVID has exacerbated existing gender-based violence and the exposure of women and girls to sexual exploitation and trafficking. Women in politics, women journalists, human rights activists, and human rights defenders are particularly targeted by online gender-based violence, as their voices are perceived as political perspectives that should be in silence. I am pleased to see that this challenge and how, as parliamentarians, we can respond to them will be at the heart of your discussion today, as you consider from a gender perspective the important term of the next resolution of the IPU Standing Committee on Peace and International Security. Colleagues and friends, currently in the Horn of Africa, 22 million people are currently food insecure due to a historic drought that began in late 20th, and it is expected to last for the next few months. Already more than 107 million people have left their homes in search of food and water. Such situation is a tragedy and affects the regional peace and security. And war continues in Ukraine after one invasion without any justification, and in too many other parts of the world. These multiple forms of insecurity have a disproportionate impact on women and girls who become more vulnerable to gender-based violence and other violations of human rights, with often no access to support systems. With this in mind, I look forward to the discussions that we will have today on how to place gender equality at the heart of water resources management, climate protection, and peace building. Sustainable development and peace will only be possible with the full participation and leadership of women. Yet, only 26.5% of parliamentarians in the world are women, and progress is slowing down instead of accelerating. Yes, but we have good news and bad news. The good one, our inquiry shows that last year, 2022, is the first year in our history where all parliaments of the world has at least one woman there, for the first time in our world. So it's a good news, but a bad news. From 21 to 22, the representation of women just grew 0.4%. It means 0.4, that we need more than 50 years if we don't change the things to achieve the real parity in gender participation and gender representation. But we needed to work. The countries where parity has been achieved in parliaments, Rwanda, where we were a few colleagues, I cannot forget all women and girls in the world who are being deprived of their rights and freedoms, excluded from public life, prevented from going to school and from working. I cannot forget the girls being sold and married. I cannot forget the women and girls suffering violence and abuse. I cannot forget girls that are forbidden to study, as what happened in Afghanistan. That can be something in our hearts that will cry forever. I condemn all verbal and physical harassment and all forms of violence against women and girls. Violence can never be justified, regardless of a woman's appearance, the way she dresses, or any other reasons, as we saw in Iran, for instance. Let us work together to ensure that our collective efforts as a global parliamentarian community empower women and girls to contribute to a world that desperately needs them. This is our task. I believe it will be your work today and for the next days here in Bahrain. We will not give up. We will not give up until we achieve what we wish: equal rights for all, men and women in our world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your very insightful speech, words, and we really count on your continuous support for women. Thank you. I would also like to make a small note. We know our guests here are having a very tight schedule, so please feel free to leave whenever you wish to do that. Thank you so much for being here.
Have a nice excuse us as well. We will have a meeting now, myself and the Secretary General, with all the chairperson of geopolitical groups together and the president of the committees. But I know you are in good hands and you will have a very fruitful work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we start, I would like to invite Zaina to make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam President. I will just announce the quorum, given that this forum will be holding elections on 14 March. So there are today 68 delegations in the room at the first sitting of the Forum of Women Parliamentarians. The quorum will be of 35 delegations. Another announcement unrelated to the quorum, Madam President, is that there are here in this room 185 women and 43 men. So welcome to the male members joining this forum. This forum, as you know, is open to male delegates so that gender equality is a shared responsibility and not a women's responsibility, but a male and female responsibilities. Welcome to the male delegates joining us today, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Zaina, and I'm so happy really to hear that we have this number of male colleagues, parliamentarians. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and I always say that women can only have achievements by the support of men. We work together, we don't work alone. So I really appreciate your attendance to this forum, and I'm sure your contribution will be very valuable to our discussions. Thank you. So now let's start, dear colleagues. We begin our work with the adoption of the agenda. You should have before you the agenda of the forum, which was discussed by the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians in October 2022. Do we agree to the agenda by acclamation? I see no opposition. Thank you so much. The agenda is approved. Thank you so much. We move then to the second item. We have many interesting topics on our agenda today, and I'm sure that you will have lively and interesting discussions. And just to remind you, our session today will run until 5 p.m. Going to item number 3 of our agenda, the work of Bureau of Women Parliamentarians. Let me start by inviting Ms. Mayuka Moma, member of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians from Kenya, to brief you on the work carried out by the Bureau at its last sitting. Ms. Moma.
Madam President, dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure to brief you on the work that the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians carried out last October in Kigali and earlier this morning here in Manama. Our Bureau stays concerned about the barriers that women in politics, and in particular young women, continue to face. Taking action to eradicate violence against women in politics and in parliaments, and to better support our colleagues who bear the brunt of it, remains at the top of our priorities. The Bureau is also actively engaged in the Generation Equality Forum Action Coalition on feminist movements and leadership. We have been involved in this intergenerational multilateral dialogue with an aim that the voices of the new generations are not only heard, but substantially reflected in policy making. Promoting young women's and girls' civic and political leadership serves to achieve more inclusive democratic institutions and to advance democracy. To reach this goal, we must ensure that the internet and social networks cease to be weapons for silencing women. This brings us to our work today as we decided to debate the draft resolution of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security entitled Cyber Attacks and Cyber Crimes, the New Risks to Global Security. Our debate will focus on gender aspects of the draft resolution, and in particular on one, highlighting the ways that cyber attacks and cyber crimes target and affect women, girls, men, boys differently. Two, preventing and better addressing cyber attacks and cyber crimes against women and girls. And three, promoting the role of women in the fight against cyber attacks and cyber crimes, including female researchers working on cyber defense systems. This will allow us to consider amendments from a gender perspective to the draft resolution. We will have this debate in plenary. The Bureau agreed that Ms. Kavakshi Khan from Turkey will chair this debate, and Ms. Al-Suwaidi from the United Arab Emirates will be the rapporteur. I take it that you will agree with these proposals. Later today, this forum will be holding a debate on parliamentary leadership in addressing insecurity and crisis, putting gender equality at the center of water security, climate resilience, and peace sustainability. With this debate, our Bureau wished to put women's crucial and valuable role at the heart of any sustainable peace, strong water management, and climate protection. Let us therefore not miss this fabulous opportunity to walk the talk of the Kigali Declaration and share our good practices and challenges to promote women's leadership in addressing crisis, as well as gender responsiveness in building resilience and sustainability. Another important theme that emerged from our discussions in Kigali was the situation of elderly women. Following a proposal from our colleague of Chile, Ms. Mix, the members of the Bureau expressed their concern about multiple forms of discrimination experienced by older women as the world is experiencing unprecedented demographic aging. We decided that this should be the topic of a future discussion at the forum. Colleagues, in Manama, the forum will review half of the members of the Bureau of the Women Parliamentarians and approve a new president and 2 vice presidents. We really look forward to welcoming new members with fresh ideas and energy. Before I end this intervention, I want to take a minute to pay tribute to all outgoing members of the Bureau for the amazing work they have done. I would also like to pay special tribute to our President of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, our dearest Lesia Vasyilenko, who will complete her term at the end of this assembly. Can we applaud her, please? Madam President, on behalf of the members of the Bureau and on behalf of all of us here today, thank you for your strong leadership for gender equality and women's rights and for your warm sisterhood. You have instilled great dynamism and commitment in your presidency at a time when your country has been facing a devastating conflict. It was a great honor and a great pleasure to work with you during your presidency. Colleagues, I look forward to our debates today, and I am confident that they will be extremely interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Muma. Let us now turn our attention to the participation of men and women at this 146th IPU Assembly and to the work of the Gender Partnership Group in charge of monitoring and promoting equality and gender sensitivity in the IPU structures and work. I'm very pleased to invite Ms. Kanouti from Senegal, Vice President of the IPU, member of the Executive Committee and of the Gender Partnership Group, to give us an overview of the work carried out by the group. The floor is yours, Ms. Kanouti.
I have the pleasure of presenting this report on the work of our partnership group. And we met yesterday, Mr. Ali Noemi, Ms. Vasilenko, and myself. And we started by examining the composition of the delegations present in our assembly, basing ourselves on the information available to us on the 9th of March. At Manama, dear colleagues, we have beat records, positive, but unfortunately less positive. Let's start by the positive records. Dear colleagues, we have 239 women parliamentarians announced at this assembly. It's the biggest number that has ever been reached at a face-to-face assembly. In terms of percentages, we have 33% on average in the recent years. What is more concerning, dear honourable colleagues, is that 25 delegations of 2 members or more have come without members of both sexes. That is also a record. We've never reached such a level, and we must not rest on our laurels or stop trying. The group has also made a note of 35 delegations present that are balanced. That is to say that it's between 40 and 60% of women. That's a little less than in Kigali and represents 26% of delegations. We have to continue on this path. Finally, as you know, honourable colleagues, with the initiative of our group, we have received the approval of our Director Council of the IPU in Kigali to develop a policy against harassment, including sexual harassment, based on the model of the Code of Conduct of the United Nations. We have started our work on a text which is more developed, and we hope to be able to finalize that for our next assembly. Thank you very much, Madam President.
We congratulate the group on its work and to lead and fight against all forms of harassment and violence against women. Colleagues, let us now turn our attention to recent gender equality activities carried out by the IPU The focus will fall on the parliamentary meeting held on 7th March on the occasion of the Commission on the Status of Women, an example of follow-up to the Kigali Declaration adopted at the 145th Assembly, and third, this year's IPU report on women in parliament and map on women in politics. To start, I invite with Ms. Véronica Gautin, member of the French National Assembly, president of the Delegation on Equality and member of the IPU Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, to report on the parliamentary meeting that she carried on behalf of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians at the CSW.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Chers collègues, j'ai le plaisir de vous faire un compte-rendu de la réunion.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I have the pleasure of making a report on the reunion of the meeting at the 75th session at the Women's Commission. The meeting was held on the 7th of March at the United Nations in New York. And we had 75 parliamentarians from 23 countries, as well as other parties. The meeting dealt with a very important theme, knowing the role of parliaments in the promotion of equality of sexes thanks to technology. The meeting was opened by Mr. Duarte Pacheco, who is the president, and Madame Sarah Hendricks, who is the director of the Division of Programs of Policies and Business. I have the pleasure of presiding over this meeting, and our colleague Leah Quartapel, member of the Committee of Human Rights of Parliaments of the IPU, in the afternoon. The debates showed three areas, key areas in which parliaments, in which we need to respect rights of women and girls. I would like to start with talking of the positive part of technology and how we need to take care. First of all, technology should be led by women and to favor their independence. And we should also encourage more women to study science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and so that they can be more present in these jobs, but also to adopt positive measures in terms of resources, financing for public marches, in order to have more women in these domains. And I think, secondly, our parliaments must do more to struggle against violence against women and girls, which are facilitated by technology. We had to legislate against all types of abuse by dealing with mechanisms that are more efficient. And we have to make sure that rights have to be the same in real life as on online applications. And that includes pornographic revenge and sexual harassment, violence online against women parliamentarians also requires measures. We have to also make parliaments improve their understanding and their potential of using technologies in their work. The COVID-19 pandemic has made several advantages appear. It's made work easier, and this diversity of procedures offers us the possibility of being closer to the population and to be able to balance our work and life balance, and to be able to achieve a better work-life balance. And I invite you all to begin in our respective parliaments to set this up as we have done in New York this week. Thank you very much.
Obviously, I would like to thank you for having this possibility of presenting this initiative. I would like to greet all of my fellow members of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians and who have given me this opportunity to present on this panel. As a country, we have brought a little presentation. I don't know if it's possible to show this. It's a very short presentation. And it's basically a commitment by our country, not just in terms of the Kigali Declaration, but also we would like to share things that we're doing against harassment in our parliament. We have translated it into different languages. We bought this book which talks about the progress, the challenges we've been facing in the Parliament of Chile in terms of gender perspectives. This is a challenge in the Parliament of Chile, and this book that we have created with the support of the Vice President from last year, it has two key parts. The first one is about the progress in Latin America in terms of gender perspectives, specifically focusing on Chile. And then in the second part, which we would like to share with you, is about the legislative initiatives that have been carried out in our parliament, in the Chamber of Deputies, and in the Senate of our country. We believe that this experience people can learn from the progress that has been made by our colleagues here in different countries. I think that we can't show the presentation, so I just want to share the content of this book with you. It has 4 chapters. We are going to leave them here so that you can flick through them, have a look at them. And we would like to exchange between the parliamentarians on our experience and to be able to learn from each other. Oh, I see. We can share the presentation here. I have my slides. This is something that we wanted to show on these slides. To be gender sensitive, parliaments need to become institutions that work continuously to eliminate the discrimination between of gender. In the Chilean parliament, we've had commitments also through the IPU, and the book brings together experience from over the last 10 years. Can we move on to the next slide, please? What we do is we bring together our experience here, all of the debates that we have had, the increase in the representation of women with the commitment of the IPU. Please just keep moving through the slides, if that is possible. Thank you. Please, yes. On to the next slide. Thank you. This is the structure of the study, and we've been able to show the panoramic in Latin America. We're seeing that there's increases in the gender representativeness. And please move on to the next slide. Here we have it. We have the basis of the path that we are taking, and we've had a lot of discipline in our parliaments. We have learned a lot from the IPU on this, and we are carrying this out in our parliament. Please, on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. There we are. Here we have some data, a figure about how it has been increasing the representation of women in the Chamber of Deputies. Today we have some 35.5% of representation of women. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. And here in the Senate, where they have a slightly less, they have 24%, but we are working hard to make sure that in both chambers we can increase the representation of women. Please, the next slide. Onto the photos. Thank you. And I'm finishing up here. We have an historic photo for us. It's a senator who was parliamentarian at this time. And as you can see in the image, it says parity now. Paridad ya. And we have shown that the constitutional reform, it was trying to grasp this progress and making sure that we have a parity representation in our Constitutional Assembly. And we wanted to share this with you. We've been very disciplined. We've learnt a lot from our experience of participating in almost 8 assemblies here, and so I wanted to share this with you today, and we're going to leave some copies of the book so you can flick through this information. Thank you very much.
States of America, more women from diverse horizons coming into legislatures, and this is a great news. In 6 countries, Cuba, Mexico, New Zealand, Nicaragua, Rwanda, and the United Arab Emirates, there are 50% women or more in some. Next, please. Now, on the other side of the coin, as I told you, the progress is not good enough. With this progress, Sub-Saharan Africa, overall same average as last year. In the Pacific, it's getting better. There is now at least 1 woman in each parliament, which was not the case before. Asia is stagnating, and the Middle East and North Africa setting backs. So that's not good, and this last region should, do better. Women in top parliamentary leadership, we have 22.7% of speakers of parliaments. This is a good progress since last year. Chairs of gender equality committees in parliament stand at 65.9%, but as you will see, only 12.5% of women chair defense committees. You see the difference between the two figures? So yes, women chair gender equality committees, but not yet defense committees. Good news, there are new women speakers in different places. Angola, France, Monaco, Montenegro, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Slovenia. Now, women heads of state and government, 11.3% of heads of state are women. I would say only 11.3%. 9.8% of heads of governments are women. Although there are increases, of course, this is far, again, from equality. Next, please. And we will move to the next one and the next one, please. Thank you so much. Some lessons learned. Quotas remain critical for representation. We say this every time, and our research has shown one more time that quotas allow for more women to enter parliaments. In elections held in 47 countries this year, women were able to take 25.8% of the parliamentary seats. Countries with quotas elected 30.9% of women, but those without quotas elected only 21% of women. So the difference is huge. Quotas make a difference. They must be clear, well-designed, and ambitious to work. If we were to reach gender parity in politics, violence against women parliamentarians should stop. It is a key obstacle to equality in politics. We know that 8 out of 10 women MPs in Africa and in the rest of the world face psychological violence in parliament. We've seen some good responses in Senegal with 6 months jail terms for 2 MPs who attacked a pregnant woman MP in the National Assembly. And some other cases that you will find in the report on women in parliament. Next slide, please. If we are to reach gender parity in politics in 2023, we need to open politics to more diverse women, create more an enabling space that reflects society, and national plans of actions are needed, quotas are needed, ending discrimination in the law too, and most importantly, addressing violence against women in politics and in society remains also a priority. Madam President, thank you for this opportunity. Dear members, you will find these publications available. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that this will help us and you promote women's political participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zaina, for this very informative report, and congratulations on the tremendous, important work you're doing. And we hope in our next session we will have much promising numbers. Okay. Dear colleagues, as we go into item number 4 of our agenda, we will now turn to the contribution of the forum to the work of this 146th Assembly, with a view to providing input from a gender perspective. This is the key role of the forum, so let's make every input count. We will be discussing the draft resolution on the agenda of the 145th Assembly entitled Cyber Attacks and Cyber Crimes, the New Risks and the Global Security, on the agenda of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security. Our purpose today is to discuss this draft resolution from a gender perspective so that amendments can be drawn to make the draft more gender-focused, responsive, and inclusive to the needs and interests of women. This will lead to concrete recommendations on gender-related amendments to be submitted by the forum to the Standing Committee. To have more insight on this resolution, a short presentation on the draft resolution will be delivered, after which the forum will debate in plenary. The debate will have interpretation in Arabic, English, French, and Spanish, and will discuss until 1 p.m. Dear colleagues, the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians nominated a chairperson and a rapporteur. Ms. Kavachi Khan from Turkey was nominated as chair, and Ms. El Suwaidi from the United Arab Emirates was nominated as rapporteur. Do you approve these nominations? I see no opposition. Thank you, dear colleagues. A big thank you also goes to the chairperson and the rapporteur of the groups for taking up this task. Ms. Kavakshi Khan and Ms. El Suwaidi, please join on the panel. Okay. And before we discuss, I'm pleased to also welcome the rapporteur of the draft resolution under consideration, who have kindly accepted our invitation to present the overall scope of the resolution. Mr. José Cepeda from Spain and Ms. Sara Falaknaz from the United Arab Emirates. We will introduce the draft resolution on cyber attacks and cyber crimes, the new risks to the global security. Ms. Falaknaz, Mr. Cepeda, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chairperson. Good morning, everyone. It's a true pleasure to be here in Manama, in Bahrain, and to present the resolution on cybersecurity and cyber attack. Joined with me, the co-rapporteur, Mr. José Cepeda. I will give just a brief information about the resolution, just on the purpose of the resolution, and then His Excellency José Cepeda will deep dive into a little bit more information. We'll make it quick, I promise. So basically, back in the IPU number 144, Spain presented the idea of drafting the resolution on cyber security and cyber attack, which has been adopted back then. The purpose of the document is to examine the challenges of combating cyber attack and cyber crimes that has become a new risk to global security and need to be addressed on all levels, especially the parliamentary level. The resolution provides an insight on the risk of the cyber attacks which poses on our world, challenges of combating it, and recommendations and ideas. Some of the challenges of combating cyber crimes were the effect of natural disasters and pandemic on cyber crimes. We have the rapid and fast changing nature of cyber crimes. The international corporations need to be strengthened and national legislations are outdated. In terms of the definition of cyber crime and cyber attack, we did not take it into consideration as the Convention of the UN defined cyber crimes, which will be approved next year in 2024. Therefore, we did not take into consideration. However, we included the term cyber attack in the resolution that was not defined by the convention. Some of the regional and international efforts on the cybercrime and cyber attacks were the Budapest Convention in 2001, the Global Program on Cybercrimes, the UN Convention, and the IPU Cyber Warfare Resolution in 2015. Before I give the floor to His Excellency José Spida, I would like to mention that in the resolution, the preambular section 15 and 17, as well as the operative paragraph number 19, specifically speaks about the most vulnerable and specifically speaking about women. The amendment has been published online, and I encourage you all to look at the 317 amendment that has been published, and also to come forward and recommend some of the amendments in terms of women. Mr. José, thank you.
I prefer to speak in Spanish, if you don't mind. Dear friends and colleagues, firstly, I would like to thank you all. It's a true pleasure for us to be able to speak to all of you. And after seeing the results that are moving forward in our organization, in the IPU environment, with this 30% that we have as data, it's very important for us to continue to struggle in this context, to have more of a female presence in all areas. And why would we like to put on the table that we have been analyzing? I have had the honor of being able to share with my comrade or my companion, Sarah van Luck. We think it's very important to have gender parity. The issue of cybersecurity is becoming a central issue for our countries. And it's certain that after the pandemic, more than the number of cyber attacks have multiplied by more than 100%. And they've also been directed to the more marginalized sectors, particularly against women. And for example, situations like phishing, stealing of passwords, and some campaigns, the disinformation campaigns, and the connection that the pandemic made people need to connect to internet in order to not be unconnected during the confinement. And it's true that it has shown a reality, and this reality has the face of women. So we have wanted to point something out, a specific issue in this report. But I would also like to take advantage of the fact that I'm here with all of you to ask you to all work in your parliaments. The report has the aim of trying to protect us against these cyber attacks that don't understand about borders, that can affect millions of people in our countries. The first message that I would like to transmit is that this issue of cybersecurity is not a matter of technicians or specialists, it's a political matter. And cybersecurity needs people who are more able, with more capacity. And there was an academy in the United Kingdom that said that only 18% of women finish university degrees in technological subjects. Only 18% of women become qualified in these subjects. We need more women integrated into training, education related to cybersecurity so that they can become part of a reality which is the reality of science, technology, computing, mathematics, where these subjects cannot just be exclusively male, and it needs to be led by 50% of the world's population. And your responsibility as parliamentarians in your parliaments is to carry out or to make policies. And when we talk about cybersecurity, we're talking about the security of everybody. And of course, it's work that women also have a lot to say. And as Sada said very well, I'd like to include women in the participation for cybersecurity. I would also like to transmit 3 general objectives, which our report would like to work on over these next few days. To have safe countries, we have to generate confidence and trust. Our first objective is to have spaces of trust in our countries. One of the system of the methodology of hackers, these groups that attack our countries, that attack the structures of our health systems, our financial systems, our energy systems, that can leave millions of people without resources, occur because countries have increasing trust in each other. And so they start to share a small amount of information for them to know how we work. So if our countries were able to share this methodology of how they work or how they operate, what devices they use and they're capable of working on, perhaps we would be able to stop cyber attacks that have developed on an international level in countries that were right next to each other because of a lack of information, a lack of knowledge. They have been brutally attacked. Now, secondly, international cooperation. Without international cooperation, we need trust. We see many debates in this organization which unfortunately are polarized by wars, because of wars that we are experiencing, and I understand, but we have to think that when we talk about the security of our countries, the future of the next generations is also at play. So to this effect, we have to, and finally, our third and last objective is to have more resources in our countries, technological resources, qualified staff. We talk about parliaments having a central function in this, which is to also set up educational plans. And I would also like to compliment by saying that women also have a lot to say in this matter. And with this strengthening to see cybersecurity as a central matter of our policies. And I would invite you to help us, both Sarah and me, who are working on this report. We have been over several months visiting lots of countries, seeing dramas that have arisen in our countries with cyber attacks that have been brutal. They have put hackers against our governments. We would like you to help us to come up with a useful resolution, which will be useful for everybody, useful beyond confrontations. And I understand that many of us have in our organizations, but in war times, talking about security is not talking about restricting rights of citizens. It's talking about defending human rights more. And we are also trying that to make our resolution useful. And for example, like United Nations, we will also try to make the resolution of all parliamentarians in the world will be represented in our organization, will raise their voices and also be a connecting element, particularly in the search for world peace. Thank you very much.
Informative talk, and we would be very pleased if you can continue with us to contribute to the discussions that will take place right now. Thank you. Thank you. And for now, I leave the chairpersonship to Ms. Kavachi Khan, and I will see you later in the afternoon session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be in front of you today, and I'll try to do my best to finish as soon as possible as we start our discussion on our panel on cyber attacks and cyber crimes, the new risks to global security. Before I start, I wanted to give my thanks to all of you, all of your countries, all of your parliaments, all of your people, for the support that you have given us in Turkey after the earthquake that affected both my country, Turkey, and Syria. We have lost more than 45,000 people. It's easy to say it in numbers, but when people talk about their loved ones, without being able to name them because it's so many lives lost, it's very difficult. But during this difficult time, we realized we have so many friends all over the world. All your contribution, the prayers, the aids, the rescue aids that came immediately are very, very valuable. Thank you so much. I hope none of you have to deal with something like this in your countries. Thank you again. Dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to preside over the proceedings of this discussion. My colleague, Ms. El Swawidi, is going to be the rapporteur. And I think it will be a challenge for us. Following the proposal of the Bureau of Women Parliamentarians, we have been appointed to be in front of you today. I'm sure the discussions will be very fruitful and constructive. Before the introductory remarks, I would like to let you know that there should be some notes, paper notes on at your desks, and you can fill them out to be able to take the floor if you wish to speak, because I know that we have very limited time and we want to finish by lunch. So, and we will be finishing at 1:15. So please feel free to ask to take the floor by sending us your submissions of the requests. As a start, let me remind you that some documents are also available at the document desk. If you didn't pick them up, you can pick it up, but there was already a presentation on the emergency item, and I'm sorry? On the resolution, I'm sorry, on the resolution. There's too many things going on at the same time, so trying to keep up with each meeting, I apologize. And I know that my colleague told me that there was a lot of a number of more than 300 amendments that were presented, so it will be a challenge for all of us to work on that. As you know, the topic of our discussion, and our objective here is to put together a set of purposed gender amendments to the resolution to be adopted. So we will bring the gender perspective into it. We may also decide to support the amendments that have already been proposed in case they echo some of our concerns. These amendments will then be considered by the Standing Committee during its debates. In our interventions, please, these are the questions that are already on the screen that we will try to find an answer for. In what ways do cyber attacks and cyber crimes target and affect women, girls, men, and boys differently? How can laws and policies better address cyber attacks and cyber crimes against women and girls? What are the good practices in preventing cyber crimes against women and girls? How can parliaments and parliamentarians promote the role of women in the fight against cyber attacks and cyber crimes, including female researchers working on cyber defense system? Before I open the floor to discussion, I would also give an example from our parliament, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. We recently established a committee on digital platforms, where we discuss, and we have representation from different digital platforms, and where we discuss also cyber crime, cyber attacks. We know from the IPU reports that women online get more harassment and more virtual attacks. Women parliamentarians are also targets to more attacks than men are. So this is an issue that's of concern to all of us. I will give the floor. I will give the floor to those who wish to speak. We already have some demands to take the floor. We will try to continue as long as possible until 1:15, but I will kindly request that you limit your presentations to 3 minutes, please, because we want to hear from as many representatives, distinguished representatives as possible. And I will please ask you to introduce yourself before the presentation. So I think we can start, right? We're ready. Okay. So may I ask for the distinguished representative from Thailand to take the floor? Thailand, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Pikun Keo from Thailand. I said that, dear colleagues, we cannot deny that women and girls are vulnerable to cyber attack. We are all subjected to various forms of online malicious activities such as online gambling, romancing scam, and fraud. Many people in present fall victims to such scams because they mostly spend vast amounts of their time on social media. I strongly agree that women and girls are disproportionately targeted and affected by technology-assisted violence and emphasized in the draft solution. Thailand's Cybersecurity Act was effective on 28 May 2019. The law does not only respond to the fast-growing digital economy in the country, but also oversees cybersecurity activities as well as to prevent and combat cyber threats in a timely manner. In the Act, we define the word cyber threats as an action or unlawful activities using computer or malicious program with an intention to cause harm to a computer system or other relevant data which would cause damage to critical infrastructure. With that in mind, the Asia-Pacific region efforts in promoting cybersecurity was reaffirmed by the recent resolution on strengthening cybersecurity in the Asia-Pacific region, which called for member parliaments of the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum to exchange parliamentary best practices in dealing with cyber threats and attacks on information infrastructures with an aim to create a legislative framework to cybersecurity in the Asia-Pacific region, and also raise awareness among parliaments on the use of ICT in achieving the SDGs with universal commitments to digital security. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for keeping up to time. Now, I'll ask Saudi Arabia, our representative from Saudi Arabia, to take the floor, please.
شكرا سعادة الرئيسة اسمي أمل الشامان.
Thank you, Mrs. President. My name is Amal Shaman. The cyber crimes are violations that violate people's rights and dignity, especially when it comes to stealing people's personal data in order to extort information from people or their bank data. Statistics say that the value of these crimes in the world reached $6 million, and by 2025 the value is expected to rise to $10.5 trillion, which is an increase of 15% per year based on the cybersecurity ventures company statistics. So it does not stop at losing accounts or stealing accounts. It also leads to smuggling, and unfortunately, women are disproportionately affected by this. Social media networks are used to trade women and to force some women, minor women, to get married. This creates fear, and therefore women do not speak up, and the perpetrators are not punished. Unfortunately, they pay the price, and some women are tortured or commit suicide. This requires international, regional, and local efforts combined in order to deal with this problem and in order to ratify international legislations to combat cyber crimes and cooperating with international organizations to combat these crimes. In addition to the continuous development of laws, of local laws, in order to to cope with all the new types of crimes. In addition to this, women should participate in raising awareness towards these crimes. Given the importance of exchange between us as parliamentarians, it is very important for us to exchange information on what we are doing in our country. My government has used an innovative strategy based on security legislations and information. Therefore, a number of legislations were issued to combat cyber crimes, including, just 1 minute, please, and a system to combat financial fraud. So there is a national platform that was established to combat electronic crimes at the different ministries, to protect individuals from fraud and canceling or preventing all websites that are accused of illegitimate activities.
And as of now, the list is closed because we have more than enough speakers. So we'll try to complete by 1:15. I will ask from the distinguished representative from Egypt to please take the floor. Egypt? I guess they are not here or here? Oh, I couldn't see you. I'm sorry. Pardon. I guess someone may have their mic on. Can you please make sure your mics are off?
ما لا شك فيه إن طبيعة التهديدات والمخاطر الناجمة.
Undoubtedly, the crime attacks are one of the most challenging problems threatening stability, economic stability, and human rights. Given the recent developments in the cyberspace and computers, we notice that the efforts to achieve development and sustainability and democracy are set aside compared to all the problems that are occurring in the cyberspace. These attacks happen suddenly without any notice. This is what we are facing today as parliamentarians representing our people, and because we are trying to protect their interests. Our country is one of the first to focus on the importance of setting controls for cyber security. We enacted laws against the illegitimate use of networks and the protection of different state networks and websites. This law was not the first step, but there were first a lot of legislative laws. First of all, the protection of intellectual property, the e-signature, and the law to organize IT. There were also a lot of legislative texts to organize the cyberspace and the illegal use of the cyberspace. Ladies and gentlemen, we call on governments and parliaments in general to promote international cooperation in order to have an international comprehensive global strategy urgently in order to combat this problem by urging the governments to expand protection to the biggest number possible of women and girls. The UN should define in a comprehensive way the cyber attacks and cyber crimes. The national legislations should be reviewed and edited in order to protect women, especially in times of election. In the end, I would like to focus on the role that women parliamentarians can play, given that they are the bridge between parliamentarians and the society. They can offer an innovative perspective to solve these complicated problems in the cyberspace by holding conferences, fora, and specialized conferences in order to create a positive environment that enables fighting these types of crimes. Thank you.
I ask our distinguished representative from Iran to take the floor, please.
In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, this is Ilham Azad, MP from the Islamic Parliament of Iran. Undoubtedly, cyber soft power has a significant impact on cultural changes against societies and destruction of women's dignity. The importance of protecting women from harm and victimization in the cyber world, particularly in the ongoing circumstances, is not hidden from anyone. In addition to positive effects, information and communication technology and cyberspace have also brought disadvantages as well. Among these disadvantages is the spread of the phenomenon of violence in cyberspace, which has become a breeding ground for criminals and criminals against women's rights due to the lack of legality and lack of sufficient supervision, as well as the lack of knowledge of the victimized women. Regulating cyberspace is trying to improve women's awareness and media literacy, turning the threat of cyberspace into an opportunity to create a culture of networking for women's rights and maintaining world peace, and dealing with soft threats against women's rights can help usefully in dealing with online violence and internet or so-called white violence. In addition, the scope of government's role playing in preventing and taking countermeasures, as well as the effectiveness of guaranteeing measures such as criminalization and punishment of cyber criminals can also be effective in reducing cyber violence. Compliance with ethics and adherence to moral principles and values, especially among reference and influential groups in different societies, prosecution, trial, and punishment of perpetrators of cyber violence against women's rights and against women's personality and dignity, strengthening internal mechanisms of deterrence and self-control and self-protection against the threats of the cyberspace regarding women, and swift issuance of warnings through judicial sentence to inform the society, especially women and children, of the effect of the cyberspace, protecting the rights of users in cyberspace by strengthening and developing the national network and the possibility of monitoring criminal and wrongdoers in cyberspace and determining legal provisions for harassing women in cyberspaces are among the proposed solutions. As parliamentarians, we also emphasize the need to respect the laws of countries in the management and monitoring of cyberspace. Despite the increases, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been very successful in dealing with cyber attacks and crimes, especially in the case of women as the most vulnerable group against these attacks. And the specialists in especially in these fields, have been taking the best measures in order to take preventive measures. The Islamic Republic of Iran believes that due to the role played by women in the development of societies, governments should seek to establish legal rules and regulations to support women. Thank you very much for your attention.
And I will please request that you stick to 3 minutes, please. Japan, our distinguished speaker from Japan, please go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Mami Tamura, delegate from Japanese Parliament. I am a member of the House of Councillors. I worked for private companies before I became a member of Parliament. Recently, we see increasing cases of attacks by international cybercrime groups disclosing stolen company data or asking for substantial amount of money on the condition they don't disclose the idea. It is urgent to help companies take measures against cybercrimes. Along the way, we need to be aware that women, along with young people and children, are most likely to be victims of internet crimes. Therefore, we need measures from women parliamentarians' perspective. I believe not only do we need to think about national security and international security, but we should pay attention to crimes targeting women via online platforms around us. For example, in Japan, cases are reported where staffs of retail stores with its full name and face are identified and posted on the social media or video uploading website. These identified individuals are exposed to a risk of becoming a victim of customer harassment or stalking. I have thought that there has been a delay in taking necessary measures against these cases because of the challenges of protecting constitutional rights and freedom of expression, as well as the traditional customs of store staff wearing nameplate with full name. I have been requesting the government to take immediate measures to review regulations and social customs by taking their risk into consideration while respecting their tradition. Also, there was a heartbreaking incident that a female wrestler conducted a suicide after being criticized on the social media due to her remarks on the TV program. Slander on the internet this incident became a serious social issue, and last June, statutory punishment to those who verbally and physically put people down for no reasons. Communication in the cyber area tends to become intense and hurting due to its anonymity and easiness to spread. It is important to protect privacy of those in vulnerable position, including women. Cyber attacks and cyber crimes occur beyond countries. Therefore, measures should be taken internationally. In addition, gender perspectives should be taken into consideration. I would like to continue to share insights with members of parliaments of IPU as we need support from women parliamentarians from each country. Thank you.
Good, very sharp, thank you. Our distinguished speaker from South Africa, please. You may take the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Fikile Masiko from South Africa. Honorable members, across all countries, women and girls are subjected to online violence that impedes their equal and meaningful participation in public life. They are shamed and humiliated by online violence. The UN Women's Research shows that digital violence can result in women and girls having to restrict their online activity, which in turn prevents their access to the internet and increases the digital gender divide. The research also revealed that in 2022, online abuse of women in a professional context was widespread, with 51% of women revealing that they have experienced online abuse and also reported a serious impact on their professional life. When it comes to legislative framework to address online violence, the UN Women found that some states do not criminalize the non-consensual online dissemination of intimate and sexually explicit images. In light of the above, South Africa proposes an amendment of operative paragraph 6 to read as follows: encourages parliaments to make full use of their oversight function to ensure that governments have the tools, including comprehensive support to victims in the form of technological support for digital content deletion, to control the rapid increase in cybercrime and cyber attacks, and to prevent the digital security, identity, privacy, and data of citizens, especially the most vulnerable. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you so much for a very good, sharp, short presentation. I'll ask my colleague from Turkey to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gender-based violence committed through electronic communication and the internet is defined as cyber violence against women. Although cyber violence can affect both women and men, women experience different and more traumatic forms of cyber violence. With the rapid development and growth of the internet age, it is estimated that 1 out of every 10 women is exposed to cyberbullying before the age of 15. In this rapidly developing and growing internet age, access to all kinds of information and social area offered by the internet has become a basic human right. For this reason, the digital space needs to become safe for women. According to a study, 51% of women aged 15 and 24 and 42% of men don't prefer to engage in online discussions for fear of being insulted, hate speech or threat. According to the result of digital violence in Turkey, a survey published by Konda research company in 2021 years with the financial support of the United Nations Population Fund, Turkey, 1 out of every 5 people in Turkey says they have been subjected to digital violence. Women state that they are more exposed to digital violence because of their gender and physical appearance. 51% of women receive text, voice, or video harassment message in digital media. 46% are persistently followed. Cyber violence against women is handled within the scope of certain category of crime listed in the Turkish Penal Code, and necessary legal procedures are applied. National and international studies and reports have shown that cybercrime has evolved as a new type of crime with the development of technology, and the cybercrime mostly affect women, and that online cyber violence can even evolve into physical violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would also like to refer everyone to the studies prepared by the IPU and PACE on violence against women in parliaments, violence against women in parliaments in Europe and in Africa. Two different reports, they're very valuable. So members of parliament and people who work for members of parliament, women, get more cyber attacks than men. That's another report we might need to look at. I'll ask the distinguished representative from Ecuador, please.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Wilma Andrades from Ecuador, and we would like to thank Bahrain, its president, for this, the president of this assembly, for this warm welcome that they have given us. And I would also like to congratulate the work carried out by Madame Vasilenko, the president of the Women's Parliament, on the issue of cyber attacks. Currently in our country, there are passing two laws to combat cybersecurity, but they are not centered on gender. Therefore, we assume that this assembly, or we value the fact that this assembly has taken this resolution that without doubt is going to be a guideline to propose changes to our laws. According to investigations, police investigations, access to computer systems and the attack to the integrity of computing systems has increased a great deal. And cyber attacks in Latin America have increased by 24% in the first months of 2022. In my country is one of the most vulnerable countries to cybercrime, only behind Brazil with 13.3% of users. I'd like to tell you about a personal experience that I was a victim of, because if cyber attacks affect the financial, commercial system, they also affect democracy. In June last year, during voting in the National Assembly in Ecuador, which was trying to change the president, 4 members were attacked. To try and do this remotely, and our voting was attacked. So those who were voting against, those of us who voted against it, in our screens, the opposite showed. And the institutionality was put at risk. Democracy was placed at risk in my country by a cyber attack. And I would also like to point out that in Ecuador, 4 out of every 10 women has access to internet. Therefore, it's a serious problem. Gender or digital gender violence is attacking women in particular who are active in social media, to journalists, women journalists who have a public profile in social media, who have been victims of disinformation campaigns, and of course, politicians. Thank you very much for your attention.
Personal experience as well. It's very important. May I ask the distinguished speaker from Malawi to take the floor?
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson, for recognizing the Malawi delegation to present their best practices and proposals on the item number 4, the issue to do with cyber attacks and cyber crimes. In Malawi, a major sector targeted by cyber crimes is the financial sector. And the other crimes we are facing as a country is the issue of email scan, distribution of compromising images, hacking, attacks of computer data and systems. And Madam Chairperson, these things affect women being the victims of these cyber crimes. What has Parliament done? So far, we have Parliament of Malawi, as we recognize the prevalence and various cyber crimes in the country. Parliament passed an electrical transaction and the cyber security bill of 2016 and into law. And in this act, Madam Chair, it provides for electronic transactions such as e-commerce. It creates and recognizes various cyber crimes and lays down their fines. Madam Chairperson, this act has provided a platform for harness all the efforts that were being hampered by lack of appropriate legislation. Malawi is also benefiting from regional initiative and the harmonization of strategies to provide modern standard for the region. What are we proposing as a delegation from Malawi? We are proposing that parliaments should make appropriate legislation to fight against cyber crime risks. We should also sensitize our people. We should raise sensitization through education, training, as well as upskilling. We are also proposing that we should target hardening through strengthening security to protect against crime. We are also proposing that there is need for international cooperation. In many cases, cyber crimes involve data transfer processes in the internet affects more than one country, and under those circumstances, the investigations requires cooperation between law enforcement agencies in all the countries affected. Madam Chair, as well as we are proposing that sanctions against cyber crimes, including ban or personal traveling and the asset freezing, should be imposed. I submit, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. May I ask the distinguished speaker from Canada to take the floor? Canada, are you here?
Merci, Madame la Présidente, de me donner cette occasion.
Everything linked to cybersecurity. Women only represented 2 professionals in cybersecurity. We have to consider that we would have a great deal to learn in cybersecurity by governance and setting up or putting into practice all these policies. And we would need to give cybersecurity to more women in order for them to be able to exert their influence on the decision making. So we need to promote the integration of women in all of public policies in terms of cybersecurity, because we have to acknowledge that women have got a lot to say in terms of cybercrime and violence which is directed against women. So in terms of these 2 factors, we need to have a greater feminine influence in cybersecurity to avoid violence and harassment against women. And we need to lobby for cyberspaces which favor the efforts between sexes and people in terms of cybersecurity. and hate and cyber violence have become clearly opportunities and for violence against women. And they're not just creating inequality between sexes, but they're also inextricably linked into the struggle against intolerance. Therefore, I hope that we will be able to unite all together and set up projects for cybersecurity. And we will find a remedy for this underrepresentation of women in decision-making, in technological development and consultations. And above all, that this resolution, once it has been adopted, we will all be together in order to be able to put it into practice. Thank you very much.
May I ask the distinguished representative from Syria to take the floor?
Cybersecurity is usually linked to terminology that are connected, such as cybersecurity, cybercrime, and electronic hacking, and how we can use electronic technology to control this. In Syria, we are facing these new challenges, and we are trying to promulgate legislation such as such as law number 5 for 2009, as well as the law for protecting intellectual property and the law to protect personal data. In fact, there are many, or we have established a special department to fight these cyber crimes, and we have trained our judges. Furthermore, we also established a national department. We have many challenges, especially when it comes to the lack of trained and competent staff. Public employees don't have a lot of expertise in this field. For solutions, we need to take preventive measures based on a specialized legislation nature and environment in order to achieve a certain level of security for internet and technology users. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You were very brief, thank you. Now I'll ask the representative from Portugal to speak, and then Greece is after that. We're speeding up. Portugal, please.
Hello, dear President, dear colleagues. Information technology area is still an uneven sector, and when we talk about cybersecurity industry, it is no secret that LOC's female representation continues at all levels. While cybersecurity is widely perceived as a future visioned and progressive industry, the fact is that it remains largely a male-dominated profession. In Europe, for example, women make up just 11% of the industry. That is why one of our objectives must be promote, encourage, and support the participation of women in the field of cybersecurity. The presence of women on the cybersecurity environment is crucial, and it begins, first of all, by education. Culturally, our schools have a long way to go. It's a question of mentality that we must change. Hacking gender barriers is also a challenge in this area, and raising society's awareness begins here in schools. We cannot have no more the promotion of differences in what boys and girls can do professionally. It's a matter of gender inclusion. Changing that, we enhance women presence on cybersecurity job market, increase the female researchers, so we can set up a dynamic and sustainable structure that promote best practices and support the development of national policies to fight against cyber attacks and cyber crimes that, as we know, continues to affect severely women and girls. It is time to deconstruct stereotypes and promote equal opportunities in access to these areas. And it's not just a question of social justice. We all know that environment with greater gender diversity is also more productive and can make the difference. Regardless of gender, this is a cause of all, and woman has an important role. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll ask the speaker from Greece to speak, and Oman is after that.
Thank you. The theme for International Women's Day, 8 March 2023, is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. The International Women's Day will explore the impact of the digital gender gap on withering economic and social inequalities. The event will also spotlight the importance of protecting the rights of women and girls in digital spaces and addressing online facilitated gender-based violence. The inclusion of women in technology will help tackle the problem of online violence that 38% of women have experienced according to the study of 51 countries. Violence against women and children, especially girls, is a global pandemic. It is a moral affront to all women and children, highlighting a profound lack of respect, a failure by men to recognize the equality and dignity of women. It is an issue of fundamental human rights. The World Health Organization reports a 60% increase in domestic violence across Europe, with the victims being mostly women and children and the perpetrators belonging to their immediate environment. Shocking data reveal that of the 81,000 women murdered worldwide last year, 56% were killed by family members. It must be a priority of the political and social life of each country to open a public debate on gender inequalities, patriarchy, and the fight against all forms of gender violence, including femicide. All of us must fight for equality in a just society without patriarchy and gender discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, distinguished representative from Greece. Now we will hear from Oman. Right after that, it will be Algeria. Oman, please.
Thank you to the President and ladies and gentlemen from the participating. Cyber attacks are a global matter that all societies suffer from, and it is a main feature of our modern times. This is why its legislations and raising awareness is very important. This is why the Sultanate of Oman adopted several legislations regarding cybersecurity, including combating technology or IT crimes, and all these efforts need more progress. We need to keep up with the developments in the cyber environment. Regarding the draft resolution that has been proposed in this meeting regarding cybersecurity and cyber risks, we can see the efforts deployed by all state members, and this is reflected by this resolution or this draft resolution, and of course we would like to support its adoption. Here we have comments regarding points 12 and 13 of this proposal, we have noticed that those two paragraphs call for the establishment of a United Nations center to spot electronic risks. However, I think that this is not really a realistic proposal, because there is a lot of tension between the big powers that are trying to exact their political and economical hegemony. In fact, they use the internet for these risks, and this center will be another polarization effect to exact their political and economical hegemony. Different countries have different electronic and technological means. This is why we think that it is important to amend this proposal in a way that will reflect reality. Perhaps the cooperation can be more regional, that have to do more with the interest of nations and their public. Thank you very much.
Before I give the floor to Algeria, I wanted to state that since we don't have any time, we won't be able to give the floor to second speakers from the same country. So it will be one person for delegation. Thank you for your understanding. So Algeria, I'll give you the floor, and then it will be Indonesia after Algeria. Distinguished representative from Algeria.
Yes.
Please.
بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أقدم نفسي فريدة.
I would like to present myself, Farida Emimi from Algeria. Mrs. President, ladies and gentlemen, hello everybody. On my own behalf and on the behalf of my colleague from Algeria, I would like to thank Bahrain for hosting us, and I would like to seize this opportunity to present our condolences for the Turkish and the Syrian population for the latest environmental crisis. I would also like to congratulate my female colleagues for the International Women's Day, and I hope that us women stay on top of our fields. And I would also like to congratulate female parliamentarians for the declaration of IPU that said that there are women in all parliaments all over the world. This progress has been made thanks to all your efforts. We need to make more efforts to reach higher levels of representation based on merit and actual practice. I would also like to congratulate you for choosing cybersecurity. It is one of the main subjects of the moment. We live in modern times where there is a widespread of IT, and cyber threats are now more common, because we can see that wars are not only fought with real weapons but also with cyber weapons. Electronic crimes take several aspects, such as electronic bullying, hate speech, disinformation, false information, terrorism through internet, and also extremism. All of this is a great threat for national and international peace and security. As a result, prevention of cyber crimes and fighting them are one of the priorities of the international community. Algeria is no exception. In 2020 and in 2021, we counted more than 10,000 victims of these crimes from individuals, companies, and institutions, and women are the most affected by these crimes. In fact, they are subject every day to electronic violence, in addition to blackmailing women through the internet. This is why the Algerian authorities put in place a very important law and resolution to fight IT crimes and cyber crimes. We established a national committee to prevent IT crimes by Law 0109. It is an independent authority that answers only to the Minister of Justice, and through the activation through and exchange of information by collecting data to identify the perpetrators of these crimes. And thank you.
Request Indonesia to take the floor, then it will be Morocco after that. Distinguished representative from Indonesia.
Yes, we're here. Thank you, Madam President. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us all. Overall, let me introduce myself first. My name is Putri Komarudin. I am a member of the House of Representatives of Indonesia. And overall, we think the draft resolution has mentioned several key gender-based points. And however, we believe it could be supported with a more victim or survivor-oriented approach in addition to preventive actions. This will ensure that the resolution supports adopting a comprehensive legal framework in countering gender-based cyber attacks and violence. And there are several points that Indonesia would like to make. First, we think we can all agree that on the increasing prevalence of women and girls falling as victims of cyber violence, a study estimated that 1 in 10 women experience a form of cyber violence at the age of 15. And similarly, in the case of Indonesia, we witnessed an 80% rise in cyber violence complaints against women and girls between 2020 and 2021. And this statistic might not reflect reality, especially if we consider that a lot more cases are not reported or that not all of those complaints are forwarded to prosecution. A study in Indonesia even reported that only less than a fifth of complaints are prosecuted. And the steady spike in cases indicates many things, including that many more forms of cyber crimes are getting recognized under our laws. On the other hand, it also showcases that prevention and handling approaches were developed slower. Thus, our second point is that we need our laws to be comprehensive instead of using a piecemeal approach that focuses just on prevention or criminalization. Our legal framework should encompass the whole cycle of a case, starting from prevention and handling to the recovery of victims' rights, so that it can better address cyber crimes against women and girls. It is indeed a challenge for us as MPs to ensure that such a framework exists in our legal systems. If there isn't, we must evaluate our existing mechanism and develop them based on victims-oriented approach. And to share Indonesia's experience, we included cybercrime or the electronic-based sexual violence into our sexual violence crimes legal framework last year through the adoption of Law Number 12 of 2022 on sexual violence crimes. And there are several key measures in terms of the recovery aspects for the victims that law introduces. The first, the law laid out sexual violence actions that can be defined as cyber crimes that are punishable under the law. And it is also complemented with a bridging clause which connects this law with other forms of sexual violence already regulated by the criminal code, child protection law, domestic violence law, and other existing laws. And therefore, even if the crimes are not mentioned under the sexual violence law, they can be punishable under it. So it provides more comprehensive protection and legal remedies to victims. And the law also provides authority to the central government to delete or terminate access to sexual content in dispute. One of the characteristics of cyber crimes is that they can quickly spread the content, even leaving digital traces that could affect the victim's rehabilitation process. With the new authority, we can control the spread of content while enabling the prosecution to process the case and its evidence and protect the victim's interests. And based on what I shared, I really hope we can consider the victim or survivor-oriented approach to complement the preventive actions we push under the draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will please ask the distinguished representative from Morocco to take the floor, then it will be Guyana after that. Morocco. Is the representative from Morocco here? I'm sorry, there you are. Go ahead, please.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, Mrs. President.
Mrs. President.
First of all, I would like to thank Bahrain for their warm welcome. In reality, today, a big number of women are subject to violence in all its forms, starting with small violations to sexual harassment. This is very dangerous. Digital violence is starting to threaten all the achievements of the different states and governments in gender equality. Today, due to this digital violence, women are isolated from the virtual space because violence is moving from real life to virtual life and vice versa. All the numbers that are published do not reflect the truth because not all women report the violence that they are subject to, either because they don't trust the law, they don't know the law, or they fear becoming perpetrators instead of being victims. In Morocco, there is a law criminalizing violence in all its forms, including digital violence. We still need to do more in this field. Digital violence is also dangerous because it affects the economic sphere. It also hinders the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is why the question here is, what should we do? And here I am talking about female and male parliamentarians. We should all work on renewing legislations and renewing the sanctions against these perpetrators. We should also define digital violence in the law. There should also be safe and secure reporting platforms dedicated to women. In the end, I would like to say that it is our responsibility to invest this virtual space in a different way. We can use it to combat violence against women. Thank you, Ms. President.
Being brief, may I ask the representative from Guyana to take the floor? Then it will be the Gambia.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to express my thanks to Bahrain for their excellent hospitality. When we construe violence in the modern world, we are quite aware that also digital technology has been an equalizer, should be an equalizer. It has opened the door to various forms of violence, hate speech, and many areas and instances when women and girls experience violence via social media. However, it is imperative that there be harmonization of legislation, looking at it regionally, and a comprehensive framework nationally to ensure that there is a dedicated thrust towards eradicating violence. For example, in Guyana, our constitution has enshrined within its tenets equality in economic, political, and social life when it comes to women. And this is further reflected in our legislation. And the philosophical ethos translates in all legislation, so much so that our existing cybercrime legislation, which was passed in 2018, will now be repealed for a more modern legislation, which is of a regional nation and regional nature, and will form the model law of CARICOM with the help of the ad hoc committee of the United Nations. In addition to that, our newer forms of legislation focusing on violence and harassment will also cater for forms of violence that are perpetrated in a digital environment. In addition to this, the harnessing of digital tools is important, and as such, an iMatter app puts together all the resources to tackle violence against women and girls particularly, and has within it a panic button to improve reporting. Secondly, we also are moving as a country to develop a card that consolidates data on every person so that there will be an effective monitoring or a monitoring tool where you will remove the chances of anonymous attacks on the digital world. And this is important because with the removal of anonymity, it will eventually eradicate or significantly reduce violence against women and girls in a digital sphere. Education is also critical. And so I would like to really propose as part of the resolutions that there must be emphasis on education. And the government of Guyana has focused its attention on targeting girls and boys in the primary, secondary, and tertiary environment by offering coding, Guyana Girls Code. This is a program because coding is an important component of cybersecurity. I thank you for this opportunity to share.
Thank you so much. May I ask the representative from the Gambia to take the floor? Then it will be Kuwait after that.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity once again from Rwanda. My name is Honorable Fatou Cham, a representative from the Gambia with a delegation of 5 members, including 6 members, including the clerk. And I will seize this opportunity also to thank our host, this country, who is so happy, and at the moment we are all happy, and for welcoming us here, giving us this warm welcome. Cybercrime, the topic cybercrime is becoming a burning issue in the Gambia and of course the world at large, which affects women and vulnerable children at their domain or even psychologically. Violence against women by way of bullying, hate speech, and sexual and gender-based violence, victims' exposure on internet for political fights, and also sexual harassment on women and children with slow action to justice. Solution could be parliamentarians to continue the advocacy on stop to cybercrime and violence against women and girls, just like what the IPU is currently doing. Therefore, I would thank the IPU for taking this bold step in bringing cybercrime as a topic in the 146th IPU Assembly in Bahrain, and Bahrain for hosting this event. And I hope this will be implemented in all IPU member countries. Gambia had decided to come up with a bill on cybercrime, which is on a draft stage, and with the hope to ratify this bill. I thank you all, and in conclusion, I advise the women women parliamentarians to take a lead in terms of advocacy in our various countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. May I ask Kuwait to please take the floor?
Yes.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, first of all, I would like to extend my deepest thanks to the Kingdom of Bahrain for their warm welcome. We would like to congratulate women on International Women's Day, and we would like to thank you for the great management of this session. I want to talk about 3 points. First point is related to Kuwait, since I am representing Kuwait today. Kuwait is taking into consideration the importance of cybersecurity. In 2022, it established a national center for cybersecurity. Under its umbrella, there are all the categories related to cyber crimes. The main goal from the center was to set a national strategy for cybersecurity and deal with all the related threats and risks. We look forward to benefit from the legislations of the participating countries in order to activate all the different fields and share expertise in this domain. The second point is it is now very important to motivate and support the students, girls and boys alike, to study in these specializations and choosing these digital specializations. It is also very important to share scientific expertise in this field among member states. The third point is today it is very important and necessary to have a comprehensive international convention to fight cyber crimes in order to cooperate or improve cooperation among countries to prevent these crimes and mitigate their risks. The absence of such conventions create a big vacuum and affect security in all countries. It is now very important to have such a convention. This void or vacuum is unfortunately affecting the security system around the world. I would like to thank the Emirati and Spanish delegations for their presentations about the cybersecurity resolution that we now need more than ever. Thank you very much.
We have last two speakers, 2 minutes each, please. I'll ask the speaker from the Arab Parliament to present. Thank you.
شكرا. يطيب لي أن أبدأ كلمتي معربة.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to express my gratitude to be present here as a representative of the Arab Parliament. I would also like to thank my deepest thanks and gratitude to the Bahraini Parliament and the IPU for the great organization of this special meeting. I want to seize this opportunity, the opportunity of participating in this debate, to call for setting a comprehensive plan that promotes the participation of women in the fight against cyber crimes, especially cyber attacks against all of our societies. Furthermore, I have several points to tackle and several recommendations, because as Arab parliamentarians, we have a big responsibility in drafting and revising the laws and legislations in order to mitigate the risks of cyber attacks that are targeting women directly. And this, of course, exacerbates violence against women. It is our responsibility to promote awareness in the society, especially raising women's awareness on cyber security. In our curricula, we should also define cyber security in a unified way. Our governments are also required to draft plans and legislations to ensure protection and mitigate the risks of cyber crimes by amending the legislations and laws to go hand in hand with these legislations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Exactly 2 minutes. Thank you. And our final speaker is from the PMNCH. You may have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So PMNCH is really concerned about the decline. PMNCH is the largest alliance for women, children, and adolescents in the world. Women are 26% more likely to be victims of identified fraud than men, and 53% of victims of identified theft are women. Furthermore, women comprise the majority of victims of cyberbullying, which is well recognized as a severe public health issue. 60% of girls and adolescents in the world with access to internet have been a victim of virtual violence at least once. This form of gender-based online violence increases the digital divide confronting women and girls coercing them to self-censor themselves or to keep a low profile for fear of their privacy or security will be violated. It is critical that parliaments around the world really look and focus on the rights of women and girls in the form that cyber attack and cyber crimes laws be more gender responsive, using a strong gender analysis approach, examining the conditions under which women and girls access the internet, gender inequality issues in relation to cyber infrastructure, landscape, and the uses to which they put the internet to use. Existing laws and policies to address gender-based violence be expanded to protect women and girls from online gender-based violence. Relevant laws and policies be made more adolescent responsive, especially towards the needs of adolescent girls. Using an adolescent well-being framework, the dimensions of which include fostering connectiveness, positive values, and healthy relationships. Creating a safe and supportive environment and promoting agency and resilience. These have been shown to protect young people for acts of cyberbullying. Lastly, the legal systems to protect the rights of adolescent girls be strengthened. We at PMCH have established with 1 million young people in the world a 1.8 billion campaign. We would like the parliamentarians to engage in this, and please pick up a copy of this and that really identifies areas of critical focus that is needed. In fact, a resolution in this area of adolescence is really needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was a very good place to conclude our discussion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, from where I sit, you look wonderful. I mean, noticing that most of the room is still here and we're late, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. We've come to the end of our business for today. Thank you again for your very, very valuable contributions. We talked about digitalization, cybercrime. We may talk about post-human future. Where are we going with all of this? And of course, its effects on women. Ms. El Suwaidi will have a challenging time putting all this wonderful information together. But in this afternoon session, we will be here again and she will present her report. I wanted to thank again to the Parliament of Bahrain, and I think we need, before we resume at 2:30, in a little bit, in an hour here, let's take a round of applause to all of you and to the translators who have been doing a very good job. Thank you. See you at 2:30.
Evet.